RFK Jr.'s march to the presidential election continues. He sat down Monday night with NewsNation's Chris Cuomo to discuss what was on his mind, particularly in terms of his VP pick, which is rumored to be Nicole Shanahan. We discussed that on the show yesterday. Now, RFK Jr. did not confirm that. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I would never choose a vice presidential candidate based upon how much money that they have. I talked to Aaron, as you pointed out. I've talked to many, many others. We liked Aaron for some of the reasons. I talked to Nicole for some of the same reasons. They're young. Our campaign is, one of the principal priorities of our campaign is bringing young people into politics and addressing the deprivation that is now and the hopelessness that is affecting this generation.
RFK Jr. also discussed censorship on social media.
President Biden had people within his White House staff contacting Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google, the other social media sites, and pressuring them to remove my posts. And my posts, they said originally, well, it's because he's posting misinformation, but they were not able to point to a single post that I had posted that was actually factually erroneous, and they had to make up a new word called malinformation, which is information that is accurate but is nevertheless inconvenient to the government. And so you had the U.S. government doing something unprecedented, which is to pressure social media sites, to censor political speech. I put up the tweet.
Cuomo also asked RFK Jr. about this snub. The Kennedy family posed for a St. Patrick's Day photo at the White House with President Biden over the weekend. Now, RFK Jr. responded that, quote, although that looks like a big crowd of people, it's a very small percentage of my family. He added, however, we can disagree with each other in a friendly way and still love each other. So he was not included in that photo, but he says he doesn't bear any of his family members ill will for being in a photo with Biden or supporting Biden. RFK Jr. himself has supported Democrats for a long time and has just now decided that that's no longer the place for him. So I don't, people keep trying to turn the family thing into a big issue. Frankly, just has never struck me as something that matters very much. Families disagree. I disagree with members of my family, some of them at least on politics, and I'm sure you do as well. And it's just not a big deal, I think. But
no, my mother and I have identical politics.
Well, my mother and I have very similar politics.
We look forward to voting Green Party as she has since the 80s. However, I do think that he has handled the attempts to try to sow discord or to paint him as some kind of a black sheep really generously and gracefully. From the beginning, this weird line of attack that how dare your siblings disagree with you seems to me to make the media look like kind of worse people and more divisive people than Kennedy. The implication that you have to be lockstep in political agreement with your family members, and that is the role of the media to try to sow discord in that way. It always felt to me very distasteful, and I applaud RFK Jr. for not taking the bait on that and always just responding, saying that I love my family and they can do what they want to do, obviously. Substantively, it does seem like he has heard some of the criticisms about this potential VP pick.
It sounded like he was responding to your remarks yesterday in which you said you thought that she was probably just a money pick, and he said, no, that's not the case.
In the absence of any other quality that she possesses except for, as he just described, youth, well, there are millions and millions of people under, 40? I don't know what you consider to be youth. Under 30? Well, I guess it can't be under 30, but over 35, it's still young. In the United States of America, it of course raises the question, why her? She is not famous. She has no name recognition whatsoever. The only thing that distinguishes her is that she is incredibly wealthy and that she has used that wealth to support RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign.
Yeah, if she is the pick, we're obviously going to have to hear more from her about what her philosophy of government is, what her policies are. Does she, because frankly, with RFK Jr., we're trying to figure out where he fits in. Not that he, shies away from telling you what he thinks, but there was speculation. Is he a close enough fit for the Libertarian Party, given that he has, on COVID and some other things, he was very much in step with them. But then, he's on Israel. He's been probably too interventionist, certainly for the left, and frankly also for many members of the Libertarian Party. And then his environmental record and some of those other things are not particularly libertarian. So there's that kind of thing. Does he fit in with on the left with the Green Party? Probably did much better before the Israel stuff came up. Is he going to be attracting a lot of Trump supporters to his midst because of COVID? Where he fits in is an open question. So then the VP pick could theoretically shed some light on that or give some indication. If she is, for instance, if she was like very solidly a Democrat, except maybe is against vaccine mandates, that could show what kind of person he's going after. If it turns out she is somewhat right-wing or somewhat libertarian, that could help us know too. We just don't really know. We have to learn more about her.
Well, we do know that she's given to a number of Democratic candidates. She gave to Marianne Williamson, for example. I remember reading about that yesterday. I don't think this is really an issue of confusion or where does RFK Jr. stand. We know where he stands on these issues. The problem is that there are a lot of kind of inconsistent beliefs with respect to how to fit in a party. I'm not saying that one person can't hold those beliefs. I think he's very emblematic of a lot of Americans insofar as that his ideology doesn't fit neatly in one political bracket. But when you're running for office, that does become somewhat of a problem. You have to explain to the public what this new package looks like and whether or not there's any kind of way that the public can predict what your behaviors are going to be going forward when you don't really have a record to run on. That's not a criticism, it's just the reality. And when the mismatch of your views are kind of all over the place and not being directed by a party platform of sorts. Also, when you have beliefs that are so kind of ideological, for example, I don't believe in big government. I believe that people should be held responsible and that regulations in the government should stand up for the people. And if the consequence of that is big government, then that's fine. But I think a more libertarian perspective where on principle you believe in small government, regardless of how it might operate in any given situation, fitting into that sort of a box is more difficult for someone like RFK Jr., particularly because he spent most of his career in a sector that is all about a regulatory framework, and that is environmental law and regulation.
Right. I mean, the libertarian view is that the major parties are philosophically inconsistent and hypocritical. Conservative Republican people favoring small government, minimal government in terms of many regulations and taxes and other things, but then favoring massive government involvement in people's personal, social lives, at the border, in many foreign policy contests. And then on the other side, Democrats or liberals or progressives favoring leaving people alone in a social and cultural context, but then favoring massive government involvement in terms of your finances and other issues.
I mean, the point I'm kind of making is
we are saying we want no or limited government involvement in all these contexts in the same way in your house and your bedroom we would want elsewhere.
But you do understand that you've never heard a liberal or a leftist walk around saying, I just love big government. If you could prove that the government could disappear and that corporations wouldn't grind us all to the ground and put us in gulags, that would be great. I don't have an ideological commitment to it. My ideological commitments are to human rights, a baseline Maslow hierarchy of needs being met, certain freedoms, including not just the freedom of speech, but the freedom to live uncorrupted by different kind of non-government powers. I also want to be free from gun violence. I want to be free from poverty, the kind of affirmative freedoms that people started to talk about more often in the wake of the kind of 1930s and 1940s.
Right. It's a textbook philosophical argument between positive rights and negative rights.
But I'm trying to make an argument that if you adopt a philosophy or trying to fit into a political philosophy that has the ideological commitment to a kind of size of government as opposed to outcomes, structure as opposed to outcomes, I do think that makes it more difficult for RFK Jr. I think the move between Republican and Democrat, frankly, given that Republicans have kind of let go of emphasizing small government and keeping spending down, it's easier for him to do that maneuvering than, frankly, to go from either of those two parties into the Libertarian Party. And I think that's why we're seeing this gulf between what Angela McArdle says, which it does seem like she has some interest in RFK Jr. bringing a lot of attention and publicity to the party, which I understand, but it seems the rank and file is very much opposed because it's very difficult to fit an RFK Jr. sized ideology into a libertarian-shaped hole.
Yeah, unfortunately. More rising right after this.